Health begins in the gut. Stay tuned because today you will discover how low carb diets serve as a basis for health and 3 superfoods for healthy bodies of developing children. Hi there, I'm Dr. Krista, founder of the American Posture Institute and your host of PEDS Week Online, the Pediatrics Virtual Summit for Healthcare Professionals. It's an honor to introduce our next guest presenter. Silvija Ābele is a nutritionist, certified GAPS practitioner, certified bio-individual nutrition consultant, and a published researcher based in Latvia. After almost 30 years in the academic environment with a PhD in chemistry, Silvija changed her career path. She now holds a master's degree in nutrition science with an emphasis in homeopathy. Her professional interests include low-carb diets such as the GAPS diet, gut health, autism spectrum disorder, ADD and ADHD, autoimmunity, fertility, and children's health. Silvija contributed to the Latvian translation and edition of the book Gut and Psychology Syndrome. Today, she'll be sharing with us Optimum Nutrition for Children's Health, for strong bones and healthy teeth. Dr. Silvija, thank you so much for joining us today on the Pediatrics Virtual Summit. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Krista. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be on your Pediatrics Virtual Summit. So I'll talk today on optimum nutrition for children's health, for strong bones and healthy teeth. Thank you so much for your lovely introduction. So I believe I can skip this slide. So I'm aware, I hope that your audience of this summit would be aware of a work of Dr. Weston A. Price, who was a doctor of dental surgery, practicing in Cleveland, Ohio in the early years of last century. And he actually was the one who investigated a role of nutrition in the health of, let's say, dental health, in health of teeth and development of healthy jaws. So he traveled all over the world together with his wife for 10 years, and he observed, so he studied these indigenous people and their diets, and he observed that these primitive people consuming their traditional diets, they had very healthy teeth and healthy jaws with a wide facial structure where there was plenty of space for their teeth to come out. So, and he also saw how quickly the modernized diets changed all this and how quickly people started to have more narrow jaws and not having enough space for all teeth to come. So, and he formulated, Dr. Weston A. Price formulated 11 dietary principles based on these traditional diets. And first of all, you should avoid all refined and denatured foods. You should include animal foods with emphasis on nutrient-dense foods like organ meats, animal fats, eggs, raw dairy, shellfish, fish liver oils, and fish eggs. So he also emphasized that you should be including probiotic foods in your diet, like lacto-fermented condiments and beverages, sauerkrauts, and like yogurt and sour cream and kefir and so on. If you would like to use grains, you better soak them, prepare them for better digestion, soaking or sprouting. And then that would reduce anti-nutrient content in these grains, and also it helped in better digestion of these foods. So saturated fats, so lots of animal fat should be included into the diet, and also avoiding industrial seed oils. So salt is not a food you should be afraid of. And you should include the gelatinous bone broths and meat stocks in soups and stews and gravy and sauces. And of course, all these principles especially would apply for pregnant women if they would love to give birth to healthy children. So these are lovely pictures of a healthy baby from Healthy Baby Photo Gallery. So these are photos of babies fed and let's say, in line with Weston A. Price dietary guidelines. And as you see, these babies are always smiley and smiling and looking very strong, and they have even facial, let's say, wide jaws, nice wide facial structure. So hopefully then when all their teeth come out, there'll be enough space. So these photos are sent in by parents to Western Enterprise Foundation website, and they publish it as in a quarterly journals. So these are kind of good examples, let's say, living examples of dietary guidelines developed by Western Enterprise like years ago. Unfortunately, all these lovely, how to say, suggestions are not yet mainstream. Officially, we have a healthy food pyramid, this form or other formats, all kinds of shapes and sizes. But the main idea of this healthy eating food pyramids principles would be it has lots of carbohydrates at the basis of these pyramids, and so it could go up to 60% of your total calories. You have, of course, lots of vegetables and fruits, and then some milk products and some fats and some protein. And then at the very, very top, you have this fats and oil section. And so if you read in text, these guidelines would say eat most grains and eat less fats and oils, which is completely opposite of what Western Enterprise found in traditional diets. Even a kid's healthy, how can I skip? Yeah, here. Food pyramid for kids is not much different. You see like official guidelines, right? You see a lot of carbs at the basis of those pyramids, and fats and oils at the very top, so very little should be consumed, which is very surprising because children are growing and they're developing their brains, and they need a lot of fats actually to form the cells of brains. And still dietary guidelines say we should limit fats and oils even for kids. If this would be reality, it would maybe not even so bad, but the problem is we have this reality. So those 60% of carbs are understood in such a format that people, let's say, serve to their kids lots of fries and chips and crisps and potatoes and burgers and donuts and sweets and sweet like soft drinks. And of course, we know how sick in general our young generations are. They not even, let's say, they have not only chronic diseases of elderly people, they have autoimmune problems, and we have many, let's say chronic disease epidemics in children. So this results also in poor dental health, and seeing braces on children and teenagers' teeth is like new normal. And then they have to fix them and fix position of jaws with different like therapies and constructions and bracelets and so on. If this would be not enough, we have also posture problems because children have weak bones due to lack of nutrients, but we will see this in a bit later. So if we ask question why human face is shrinking, getting more narrow, in contrast to what Western Enterprise observed in those indigenous cultures, there are several aspects to consider. And I used excellent blog post article of also a doctor of dental surgery, George Paul Greenacre. And I will not go through all of these because we have not enough time to discuss it all, but I put in red those aspects which are connected or related to nutrients or to nutrition, which is kind of my specialty a little bit. So micronutrient deficiencies in our food supply are due to soil depletion. So we say sick soils mean they're empty, they're lacking nutrients. So then we have plants growing on those soils, then animals eating those plants, and basically we are receiving as a human, we receive empty or half empty plants and animal foods. And there is such a term nowadays as malnutrition type 2, which means we have lots of produce, we have lots of, our shelves in supermarkets are full of different packages and packed foods, but most of it is not nutritionally dense, so they're lacking nutrients. So this is how we eat a lot, much more than maybe earlier people used to do it, but we are lacking nutrients, so we are malnourished. So there is malnutrition of a type 2, which is not objective malnutrition, which is the case when children or people in poor countries really lack the food. So reduced breastfeeding is an aspect, because we know that baby sucking a nipple of her mom it's much harder work, and it also promotes developing of a wider jaw. And so it's much easier to suck on a plastic nipple, not even speaking about a comparison of breast milk to formula milk. So with all the science, we invested in developing formula milk for those moms who have no option or have no possibility to breastfeed. So it's not even coming close to the richness and content of breast milk, which is a live full fat, let's say, live system, bringing to the baby whole host of different nutrients for babies' growing and development. So poor macronutrient choices is another aspect, because we consume so much sweet drinks, refined sugars, synthetic sweeteners from the junk food industry. Quality of water is not excellent, and all these substances are dangerous, or not, let's say, not helping us to be healthy, dangerous for human health and microbiome. So we should put more emphasis on consuming more fatty acids and trace minerals, iodine, and green foods, Himalayan sea salt, and so on. Then there is such thing as metabolic disruptors in our diet. So we can eat good foods, but with a presence of metabolic disruptors. So they change our, let's say, the way how our nutrients are metabolized in our body. So we have more than 100,000 new chemicals added to our food and soils and water and air since the Second World War. And many of these chemicals are metabolic disruptors. So they disturb human growth and development. So they interact with our endocrine system, and they're toxic to our neurons and brains and so on. So you've heard about herbicide glyphosate and its impact on detrimental impact on health. Excitotoxins like monosodium glutamate and others are also metabolic disruptors. And as the author of this blog post tells us, sugar should be considered as a metabolic poison number 1. And microbiome dysbiosis, of course, again, your professionals audience would be aware of extensive microbiome studies and research going on. Microbiome, of course, we know most of it resides in the gut, in the large intestine, but it's everywhere in our body, including our skin and airways, like, for example, nose. And if you have abnormal gut microbiome, you might have also abnormal gut, let's say, nose microbiome. And then if the nose is blocked, children would tend to breathe mouth open. And that's, again, adding to the problem of that narrowing dental arch. And again, that's to go with the consequence of braces and so on. So mouth breathing is really something parents should pay attention. So, and you can, let's say, try to solve it by addressing gut microbiome, again, by a diet, as we will see in a minute. I would add to this list, which is quite extensive already, poor digestion, because there is let's say one side of a story is all the nutrients, all the good foods you bring to your table with a hope that it will provide nutrients for your body and your health. But the other side of the story is what can your body can take in. And if your digestion is not optimum, if your microbiome is not ideal, if your gut lining is leaky, so you can choose the healthiest diet in the world, your body will not profit from all those good nutrients. You'd actually spend time and money and energy to resource, right? So yes, and as I said, poor posture is another problem, somehow related in my mind to let's say to bone health and teeth health. And it's, of course, we can take into account all those aspects we discussed earlier, but there is, again, on top of that, there is sedentary lifestyle, there is a lot of screen time, there is not enough physical exercise. And so we see our children, and this is like a new normal. And so what can we do about it? So if we ask, what is there anything I can do with diet or nutrition for better bone health and teeth health, and maybe even better posture, because my bones are stronger then, I have stamina to stand, right? So yes, so the question is like, can I do anything good about my bone health by a diet? And before we go on, we should always remember that every cell in our body, being it a gut cell, gut lining cell called enterocyte, being it red blood cell, being it bone cell or brain cell or any cell in the body, is formed by using nutrients we bring into our body by the food we eat on a daily basis. And not only formation of those cells is basically defined by the food we eat, but also regeneration, or let's say homeostasis or equilibrium of those cells. So every cell, again, in the body has a specific or definite lifespan. So we know enterocytes or gut lining cells would live 2 to 5 days only, or red blood cells would live 120 days, and skin cells would live at, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks. So every cell has definite lifespan, and they need nutrients not only to be formed and to do their functions, but also to fill their functions, because it's not only there to stand still, right? It's to perform some biochemical or physical function of the cell. So, and those cells then form our organs, our tissues, our and bones including, right? So if we understand this notion that we need to nourish our cells on a daily basis, preferably with a nutritionally dense foods, then we take care of our every organ system and bones and teeth. So, and these are here just the very main nutrients we would need to provide to our body to have strong, good bones and, of course, teeth. So again, let's just so briefly to discuss some of them. Collagen is number one, and collagen is a protein which is most abundant in our body. And we need it not only for bone health and bone structure, actually, we need it for skin, for connective tissues, and for for joints, for many organ systems. So here, collagen is a key component of bone, which forms the structural matrix within which the bone minerals are then put on or in between. So protein also helps absorption of calcium, and calcium, as we know, is the main mineral in the bones. So adequate protein intakes plus resistance exercise promote muscle growth, and then those muscles, when they are physically let's say, doing their work, they're moving, they massage bones, and then bones getting stronger. We need enough fats in our diet in order to take in fat-soluble vitamins. So calcium and vitamin D goes hand in hand because vitamin D helps calcium to be absorbed. So as I said, calcium is the main mineral in a form of calcium phosphate. It forms a part of the mineral matrix, hydroapatite. So this is why adequate intake of calcium is very important for children. It becomes very important also in perimenopause and menopause when we have this risk of osteoporosis and loss of bone density. And so vitamin D is essential. Phosphorus is another major mineral of bone, so because that phosphate part, contains phosphorus in it, so calcium phosphate is the main mineral component, and so it's combining phosphorus combining with calcium forms our hydroapatite crystals. And on the contrary, when we consume a lot of phosphoric acid, which is present in soft drinks, it can give us more fragile bones. So there always should be equilibrium between calcium and phosphorus. Magnesium, lots of magnesium found in the bones. I will not go into details to save time. So vitamin K plays a role in formation of the bone matrix during mineralization, and vitamin C, as many of us know, that it's involving in production of collagen. So collagen, it helps to collagen to be formed in the body, and it stimulates those bone forming cells on their differentiation. So these are kind of theoretical little bits of knowledge justifying why we need those nutrients. Once we know all this, then it's easy. We can go and think, what food should I eat in order to provide all these nutrients for bone health? My approach, with my understanding of this moment, would be to look away from high carb, low fat diets because it has lots of empty calories, lots of carbs. But remember, our body is made mainly of protein, like muscle mass, and fat. So this is why we need a lot of protein and fats to be provided in order to make structure of our body. So my approach would be to look into low carb, high fat diets, which is again looking into direction of Weston A. Price dietary guidelines. But here is the problem. We are not what we eat, we are what we absorb. I don't know the author of this quote, but this basically means that it's not enough to choose even the best diet. Again, you have to make sure that your body or your child's body can use it all. So again, you have to make sure your body can digest the food you provide. It can be, let's say, it can feed good beneficial bacteria, which again continue digesting the aspects of food like cellulose or fiber you cannot digest yourself. So you should take care of gut lining so that the foods which are digested can go through the gut lining to be absorbed in a format as it meant to be by nature, which means fully digested, not in peptides form or some fragments of half digested foods, which are then leading us to autoimmune problems. So we have to make sure our gut is functioning properly in order to benefit from that appropriate or optimum diet you choose for your child. And the good news is there is no need for extra technique or extra tool or extra intervention. It can be all done and taken into account by diet itself. And one of my favorite diets, as you could guess, is a GAPS diet. This diet is created by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. She is a medical doctor. She is neurosurgeon. And with all her knowledge in brain surgery and as a neurologist, she could not help her own child. with her knowledge she had. This is why she went back to study nutrition. And out of this, GAPS diet was born. And GAPS diet is giving you that promise of healing and sealing the gut with a nutritionally dense foods, with a diet, not, let's say, bringing in a lot of healing foods and excluding those foods which are difficult to digest for the moment. And GAPS translates as gut and physiology syndrome and gut and psychology syndrome. And actually, psychology part, this yellow GAPS book was the first where the GAPS came into the world. And so this means that you can actually help your brain to function better if you first fix your gut. And as we know now, with this gut-brain connection, it goes both ways. So your gut health influences your brain health, and other way around. And Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, I would say after Hippocrates, maybe is one of the first or next person, let's say, combining this all together, gut health and general health, because Hippocrates said all disease begins in the gut, right? And so with this notion in mind, Dr. Natasha Campbell's work is started, and so she focuses on gut healing first, and then the body itself will reach as far as it can, right? So what are the principles of GAPS diet? It's just very short introduction here, right? In GAPS diet principles, foods to avoid would be complex carbohydrates, namely disaccharides and polysaccharides. In terms of foods, it will be sugar having sucrose in it, disaccharide, grains, potatoes, and corn having starch, complex carbohydrate or polysaccharide, monster, very difficult to digest, long and branched carbohydrate chain, unfermented cow's milk products, lactose, disaccharide, and of course all processed food should be excluded. GAPS diet principles would invite you back to our ancestors' ways of cooking from scratch, slow cooking, and let's say nowadays you would go to the farmers markets to support them and to have a good quality produce. If you can grow in your own garden, even better. If it's ecologically grown, it's perfect. But everybody would have their own options. So start where you can. Foods to include, so it's basically there is more emphasis of what's to be added to the diet, remembering those malnutrition aspects, right? So we want to feed our body, we want to feed gut lining cells so that they can get healthy and start filtering undigested foods, right? So foods to include is meat stock, which is a staple food in GAPS diet. Then probiotic foods like fermented milk products like kefir, yogurt, sour cream, fermented vegetables like sauerkraut and other vegetables, loads of good fats, unsaturated fats and saturated. It will be fish and fish oil, it will be saturated animal fat and olive oil and fish oil and eggs and butter and ghee and avocado and coconut and so on. Nuts and seeds and meat and fish and vegetables, fruits, berries, these would be staple products in GAPS diet. So then let's say go just a few examples. So benefits of meat stock. So you remember that list of what we need for strong bones and healthy teeth? We needed collagen. Here you go. Meat stock made from scratch, from carcass of your chicken, from skin, from liver, from good fats. So will provide you abundantly loads of collagen, not from jars. Nowadays people are buying collagen, trying to be healthy, and let's say athletes and so on, as they buy collagen in jars, which is denatured, hydrolyzed, deodorized, and so it's much more let's say it's less expensive and more tasty to have to intake your collagen in form of meat stock. So, and then you add your vegetables and you have your soup. Plenty of all those nutrients listed here and others. Again, in red, I put those especially needed for bone health. You remember calcium, you remember phosphorus and magnesium. Here they all are. And you have glycosamine for your joints, you have omega-3 fatty acids for your brain cells, you have saturated fats for every cell of your body, you have amino acids, vitamins, and so many nutrients. And believe it or not, but the first cells receiving all these goodies will be your stomach lining, which will be then allowing to heal your stomach lining, let's say inflammation or gastritis or your ulcers or so on. And then your small intestine cells will be the first one receiving all these beneficial nutrients, and they will restore them very quickly in just a few days. So, and once the leaky gut is sealed, your, let's say, your digestion is more complete. Your enterocytes of your gut lining will not let through partially undigested foods. So this is how you can even stop your symptoms of autoimmunity. So that's another topic, but gut lining is actually number one task in terms of gut healing, I would say. And it's very tasty and yummy to have that bone broth or meat stock. In GAPS diet, we emphasize meat stock. Sauerkraut and yogurts made at home or bought in a farmer's market, that would be a great support for your microbiome. And so, yeah, that's great and easy and tasty and not very expensive. Good fats is another superfood in GAPS diet, as I put it. So we use a lot of eggs and ghee and butter and fish and olives and olive oil and liver pate, which is very nutritionally dense, rich of B vitamins, rich of iron, rich of good fats, and meat jellies. So these consumed on a daily basis would quickly restore your gut and nourish your cells. Of course, lots of vegetables, lots of greens. We have pancakes. We can even have some waffles from lentils and so on. And GAPS diet is very a tasty diet. There is lots of healthy snacks allowed on a diet. You can have berries, you can have yogurt, you can have ice creams made from sour cream, you can have seeds and yogurts and apples and smoothies. And so there is endless, ideas, and there is cookbooks and groups and blogs, and so people you can guide you through. It's really, there is no starving. There is a full spectrum of nutrients, so much needed for your body. Or maybe your body has starved for those for months and maybe years. Just in a couple of slides, I want to share my personal experience with GAPS diet. So personally, in my family, it's used like almost for 10 years now. I managed to run away from chronic anemia myself when I started to study GAPS diet and did my introductory diet first. I quickly learned how important is the stomach acid level in your digestive system. So by improving stomach acid levels, I solved my chronic anemia, which I had like 45 years of my life. So that's my own experience. Then in my university studies, I did two little studies using GAPS diet for children with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and another study for GAPS diet for children with ADHD, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. If you want to see more studies, you might go to GAPS Science Foundation. It's not, there is not extended list of studies yet, because it's just recently established. As a GAPS diet's author and her team, they understand that GAPS has to be put on a scientific basis to have more credit and more credibility. And so, yes, they're starting to combine, to compile and do actually studies themselves to show how efficient it is and how effectively it can help to many problems, mental, psychological, and physical. So these are my little two studies at university level. And I like a lot this gut to behavior cycle diagram, which I used in both studies' thesis. which is simply explaining you how by changing diet, your food, you can actually impact your, let's say in our case, in our studies case, brain function. Because all the food you put in your digestive system, of course, goes into the gut. Then it gets digested, it crosses your gut lining, and then it enters the blood. And then blood brings all these nutrients to the brain by crossing blood-brain barrier, right? And then brain would affect or change or improve children's behavior. So now imagine we could here at the side from the blood circle put any organ system. We could put here liver, we could put her skin, we could put her lungs, we could put her bones and teeth, and like from blood is a highway where nutrients are brought around the body to every cell where it's needed. So, and blood is a media where nutrients travel like to any organ, and including bones and teeth and anywhere really. So, and with these studies and with Yellow Gap's book of Gap's author, she actually emphasized if we can go as far as mental health and brain function with this diet, with very tasty and manageable on a daily basis diet, just with a book in hands, so then we can reach every physical organ as well, right? So including bones and including teeth. This is why I included these little studies here. So just a couple of slides of results. First here, you see GAP's autism study. ATEC is a autism treatment evaluation checklist, which is a quick tool for parents or specialists how to evaluate progress of a child. If there is a progress, let's say reduction in autism expression or some symptoms, you should look in this graph for reduction of, let's say, in red color, you see columns of GAPS group or intervention group. So reduction in this column is good direction to go, which means ATEC score reduced in 2 months' time. There is not much change in control group. So as you see from numbers, there was 23% reduction in autism expression in these children only by changing a diet, not even 100%. As in this next slide, you see 6 different questionnaires filled by parents. Some of them are normalized to have them on plus scale, all of them, to be able to compare. So you see in intervention or GAPS group, reduction in autism expression, different symptoms, from 13 to 43%. I think it's huge, keeping in mind that parents' compliance with a diet was only 40 to 80% by their rough estimation. So imagine what would 100% of compliance would do for these children, right? So this is one study, and these results are published now in scientific literature, so you can go Google and find and read and learn the lesson. And another study is GAPS diet for ADHD children. This was a bit larger study, 52 children. We had 3 groups now, control group, GAPS diets group, and GAPS plus prebiotic group. So you know already GAPS principles, I'll not go back to this, but we used a GAPS plus prebiotic group as one of the, because we had enough children to divide in 3 groups. So there was a prebiotic formulated especially for this study with an idea in mind to support children's gut microbes, to help absorption of nutrients and transport of those nutrients. So it was gluten-free, sugar-free, starch-free, lactose-free, so completely GAPS, 100% GAPS compliant prebiotic. Contained some cranberries, some honey, some wood, this hufulac substance, which is patented now, with wood lignin and chaga mushroom in it. And so it provided fulvic acid, humic acid, and so many other useful nutrients. So we were expecting that this will be an added bonus, added value for these children. And so, yes, it's commercialized prebiotic now. And so here are some results. In this graph, you see ADHD expression evaluation by DSM or SNAPS questionnaire. So you see 3 lines. Black line is control group, so no intervention at all. And then 2 groups, GAPS diet is the blue line, and GAPS plus prebiotics, this black stuff, is the red line. So what you see here is that in 2 months' time, from baseline to month 2, you have statistically significant difference within that same group. So, which means that difference is not by a random chance. It's statistically, let's say, proven by statistics instruments, right? Which means it's there is a impact or influence of that food children had during those 2 months. It's not random result. And this other graph is also showing not only statistically significant difference in 2 months' time for both diet groups from the beginning to the end point, but it also shows a statistically significant difference among 2 different groups, like control black and blue line is a GAPS group. So unfortunately, we did not prove that GAPS plus prebiotic was giving better results, but it's still this study and these results prove that GAPS diet was an important factor. It helped to improve these children's situation in terms of reduction of their ADHD symptom expression. So to me, it's very promising research. These results on ADHD study still to be published. And to me, it's showing very high potential of such a dietary approach where we focus on high fat and low carb principles. And this is my last slide. So luckily we have people and we have teams of people and foundations formed which are carrying on and keeping on the work of Weston Price, this dentist who put together nutrition and bones and teeth health, Price. So we have people who keep going with these principles and advertising and promoting these dietary guidelines. So there is lots of good books like Sally Fallon-Morell's books. She is maybe founder, I'm not sure about it, but she's director of Weston Price Foundation, and she has many books on fats and nourishing diets and bone broth, and there is a cookbook for children, so there's plenty of books and information in there. There is this Weston Price Foundation, their website, and they have booklets, and you can become a member, and you can receive these quarterly magazines, and you can send in your baby photos, and so you can go to conferences, and it's huge community, and you can get support there. And there is also Price Pottinger organization, which I just learned recently about, which is also promoting work of Weston Price and his follower, Francis Pottinger. And of course, there is Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride's websites and books, and there is gaps.me website, where you can find certified GAPS practitioners near you. And for United States, there is this GAPSdiet.com website. So there is lots of information in there, and there are books. And so, that's giving a hope that these dietary guidelines are more and more spreading, and more people can access this information, and that would help their children to grow healthy and themselves as well. And that's all my slides, and I thank you so much for having me on your summit, and thanks to listeners for your attention.
Wonderful. Silvia, thank you so much for this excellent presentation today. All right, I'm going to go through a summary and then a couple of questions for you. So you began by discussing Dr. Weston Price, who's a dentist, and his observations with nutrition and physical degeneration of the teeth and jaw. He observed indigenous people who had healthy teeth and jaws with a wide facial structure with plenty of room for the teeth. The modern diet, however, has demonstrated that we now have narrower jaws. And so there's 11 dietary principles, including avoid processed foods, eat animal products, nutrient-dense foods, have probiotics, prepare or soak grains, have saturated fat fats and oils, omega-3 fatty acids, eat salt, eat bone broth, and then pregnant women should consider these diet modifications for having healthy babies. And the food pyramid, unfortunately, the classic food pyramid is a poor recommendation because there's too many carbohydrates at the base and not enough healthy fats, which are at the top of the pyramid. So we need fat for the developing brain for children. Many children now have chronic diseases, autoimmunity, and poor dental health. And we're seeing also a lot of posture problems. And so we've seen that the human face is shrinking. And so we're seeing pathologic changes in human swallowing, micronutrient deficiencies due to soil depletion, reduced breastfeeding resulting in an overbite jaw, poor macronutrient foods, too many sweets and refined sugars, metabolic disruption in the diet and environment. We've actually added, this is crazy, about 100,000 new chemicals to our food, including glyphosate, increased food allergies and sensitivities, insufficient use and stimulation of the jaw, soft tissue restrictions and oral habits, microbiome dysbiosis, and birth traumas. And then we could add to that list also mouth breathing and poor digestion. And so poor posture related to bone and teeth health due to also a sedentary lifestyle and screens. We've seen a change in lifestyle for pediatric patients. And then if we look at bone and health nutrition, so bone formation and homeostasis require a constant supply of energy and nutrients. Every cell has a limited lifespan, but our cells then become our organs. So when it comes to good bone and bone health and nutrition, we need protein, and collagen is a protein for bone health, structure, skin, and connective tissues, fat to absorb fat-soluble vitamins, calcium and vitamin D to prevent bone loss, phosphorus, a major mineral component of bone, magnesium induces osteoblast formation, vitamin K for the bone matrix, vitamin C for the production of collagen, and then also potassium, copper, manganese, and boron. And so we want to go for a low carb and high fat diet. So we are not what we eat, we are what we absorb. I think that's a beautifully stated quote here. So we need to eat foods that we can fully digest. And then you shared with us the principles of the GAPS diet. So gut and psychology syndrome and gut and physiology syndrome. Heal and seal the gut with healing foods. Help your brain function better if you impact your gut health. Foods to avoid: complex carbohydrates, sugars, grains, potatoes, corn, lactose, processed foods. And foods to include meat stock, fermented milk, sauerkraut, fats, vegetables, fruits, berries, meat, fish, nuts, and seeds. And the benefits of meat stock include collagen and minerals and restores leaky gut for better absorption. Sauerkraut and yogurt made at home are superfoods as well as fats. And then food-rich diet won't leave you feeling starving. And so if we look at the gut behavior cycle, if we heal the gut, that impacts the blood, which impacts the brain and all other organs, behavior, and leads to better food choices. And blood is a highway to deliver nutrients to the organs. And then you shared with us a couple of great studies showing a 13 to 43% reduction in autism spectrum presentation for children on the GAPS diet, and then also less presentation or an improved presentation for children with ADHD with less signs and symptoms associated with ADHD from the GAPS diet. Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. And then a question for you: if children are following the GAPS diet, do you also recommend that they do supplementation on top of that, or do you believe that the GAPS diet is enough and they don't also need supplementation? For example, you mentioned a prebiotic in that second study.
Yes. Thank you so much for such a great, excellent summary you made. And that's a great question. If we go to GAPS book, which is Yellow GAPS book, this is where GAPS diet started. From there already, GAPS author, Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride, she always emphasized that most, let's say, if not all nutrients should come from a food. Providing that food has all those nutrients in it. That's why we would look for organically grown or locally grown, or you grown in your garden, your own foods. Then she would go on discussing some minimum supplements. One of the number one supplements she suggests should be added to a even GAPS diet is omega-3 fatty acids, because we are not consuming so much fatty fish anymore, and we have so many, let's say, mental and psychological problems in children or in adults. So we have to support our brain, and brain consists of fats, and as they say, 60% of brain dry weight is fats, and possibly, I don't know, in percentage, half of it, or some percentage, maybe main percentage of it would be unsaturated fats. So we would need omega-3 fatty acids for brain structure, and of course for brain function, for brain cells. And we also need saturated fats for brain cells, and we need good cholesterol to make cell membranes more rigid, right? So yes, so omega-3 fatty acids in terms of in form of fish oil and cod liver oil would be the one supplement suggested by GAPS author.
Wonderful.
And then another would be a supplement helping to fix your digestion. This was a supplement I mentioned for my personal story for anemia. So it promotes your hydrochloric acid in your stomach, and then it improves digestion, and then this cascade like goes into the right direction like dominoes, right? So there is so many people, and I must say in my clinical practice now, I would say 80% of people coming into my doors, they would have low stomach acid, not enough stomach acid. And then as a consequence, they would have this reflux. And just today before our summit, I had a consultation with a girl, 16 years old girl. She has candidiasis in the esophagus. And so basically she has low stomach acid. And as a consequence, not only poor digestion but also there is this acid reflux,
Sure.
which is not because of she has too many or too strong stomach acid. She has poor stomach acid, and then bacteria like Helicobacter and Candida coming into the stomach, and then it just goes everywhere.
Yes.
So yes, hydrochloric acid supplement in a form of betaine would be one very often suggested to GAPS patients, and there is such thing as GAPS syndrome. So she also talks in her books on GAPS patients. So yeah, so many GAPS patients would profit from betaine as a supplement, and it's discussed in the book. There is a little chapter, hypochlorhydria, so which means too low stomach acid, not strong enough, and you can supplement.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that excellent resource with us today. And as we wrap up another great session today on PEDS Week Online, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Silvija for her excellent work in nutrition science. I'd also like to acknowledge you, the healthcare provider who's learning up-to-date clinical solutions to serve your pediatric patients at the highest level. I'm Dr. Krista, your host on PEDS Week Online. Be sure to get the Pediatric Clinical Pearls Super Pack for ongoing summit access and tools for simple implementation into your practice. Stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next Pediatric Masterclass for PEDS Week Online.